Everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Today, an art journal tutorial. This one, we're starting with collage papers. So I had this couple image from a magazine sitting on my desk for weeks now. And then when I pulled out my love quotes to do Valentine's, I had that quote that love doesn't make the world go round. Love is what makes the trip worthwhile. And I thought this works perfectly. So I went into my stash and I got a picture of a globe. Now, I'm just showing you why I photocopied the magazine picture. The magazine picture is on the left, it is larger, and I wanted the right scale for my page. The globe or the earth picture was also too small, and I blew that up to make it fit the composition that I'm creating on, the size that I'm creating on. So I have this couple and the earth and the quote. So that was the start of it. Now I decided that I wanted to make the background in the blues and greens of the earth, but I wanted to build some texture in there. So I went back to a technique of starting the page that I used to use an awful lot, and that is just collaging papers down. I've got music paper here, I've got papers from an atlas, and I love the colors in that atlas, that lime green, the blues, and I want to that's kind of leading me down the path. I also kind of want that vintage. I grabbed this napkin because I'm thinking it might work here. It has the same blues and this colored coffee filter. So like the atlas paper is a little thicker, the music paper is thinner, and the coffee filter, again, they're all different and they all collage differently. And together, as I'm layering them up, as you see here, they create some amazing texture. Bits and pieces of all of this will show through. Didn't need the napkin, it'll be saved for another day. So after I rip out the pieces, I don't like the straight edges, I am collaging these papers down. I just want to get kind of a mixture. I want some of the darks and lights. I'm trying not to overthink it. Just a reminder that a summary of all the steps and techniques will be done at the end of the video with my technique cards. Just kind of a good recap of everything that we've done on this page. So again, I'm ripping and just layering this up. The coffee filter and any of it, I'm not really too worried if I get creases or wrinkles in it. That's just going to add. I do intend to have some of the music paper, some of the atlas peeking through the final product, and it does. I don't know that you can see it, but I can see it, and I love that. But you definitely benefit from the texture of all these layered papers. Now at this time, I know I'm going to come back. I know I'm going to do some stamping and stenciling. I know I'm going to put some modeling paste on here, and I know I'm going to add more color. So really this is about layering and just getting some interesting shapes. I'm using fluid matte medium from Liquitex to glue this down. And there's lots of layers here, so you are going to need to make sure that this dries before you move to the next step. I'm just trying what I have, where I want to put it, kind of seeing where I want to go. I've had an idea from the beginning. I don't always know what focal image I'm going to start with. So I grabbed this stencil. This is called Texture Love, and it has lots of various marks on it. And you can use all the marks that are there, and I've just taped off this heart-shaped one because I really want just that. But you could do that for any little motif on this type of stencil. This is a great one for mark making and very usable on all sorts of pages. Wanted this a little bit darker, so I'm coming in with black paint And I'm just putting the hearts behind here. Now again, I'm going to be adding modeling paste. I'm going to be adding more stamping, more stenciling, and I'm going to be putting color. And I know that some of this will be pushed back. I'm planning on it. But because my theme is kind of love, I wanted these hearts in the background, kind of symbolism, but not up front in your face. And I'm doing it in black because I want different tones, some darker and lighter. Now I'm coming in and stamping with white acrylic paint. This is from Tim Holtz's Mixed Media 2. It's a good basic stamp set. I believe there's 4 different texture or background stamps. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking, oh, if I wanted more texture, I could have been stamping with white gesso, but I chose not to because I know I'm going to be adding modeling paste. These X's is another one from that Mixed Media 2 set. And this time I'm stamping with black acrylic paint. Don't forget to stamp off the page. That just looks so much more pleasing to the eye. So once that's dry, I have this snakeskin stencil. This is from the Crafter's Workshop, and I will link this and other specialized products in the description box. You just have to click the link and you can go to any of the affiliates. This is a snakeskin stencil and it provides so much great texture. And I'm using TCW modeling paste and I'm putting it through randomly. I just want all over texture. I want this to kind of look like the earth, but I really want to bump up that texture feel. I typically put the modeling paste on my glass and then I use a key card to apply it. Again, you're going to want to give this a good dry. So now I'm going to be adding some colors and I'm going greens and blues and yellows. These are analogous colors. They are next to each other on the color wheel. They are going to mix fairly well. The Naples yellow that you see right now me dipping into, sometimes when I mix it with the green, it's making a bit of a brown. So I do wipe that back with a baby wipe. I'm adding Prussian blue, just different colors, and I'm putting it on, mixing it wet into wet, and working it into the textured areas. And as you can see, as I'm layering this up, I'm pushing back some of that stamping and stenciling that I did. And that was my plan. I want that to be a layer in the background. I do some more stamping and stenciling up again using those same stencils and stamps later on, but then that's kind of targeted areas. I just want this to look like the colors that were on the atlas paper, like the colors that were on the earth printable. When you use music papers that are discolored over because they're aged, that color peeks through and I love how that looks. And then I'm bumping up a little bit of that color by using the Naples yellow. This was very dark right here, so I'm adding a little bit, wiping it back and adding some more color to it. Now I'm testing out my composition, and where the couple is, it's very dark right behind their heads, which means is their heads aren't really going to show. So I'm coming in with white gesso and then some of the green paint and blue paint and just lightening and brightening that area. And now I'll get that contrast and I'll be able to see this couple because my plan is to keep them black and white. I'm adding a little bit of green I want that brightness behind their head. I like that better. Now be careful when you're touching your printables and stuff. If you've got paint on your hands, there's a likelihood that you're going to get paint on them, and that may not make you happy. So I decided that instead of gluing down the earth, I was going to trace it and try to bring out the earth from my background using the negative painting technique. And I use the floating acrylic technique. Now I trace this with my Stabilo all pencil, which is water soluble and will move and reactivate, but I am coming in with the shading with black acrylic paint, which will be permanent when dry. And this is important when you are going to put anything wet on top. And I'm going to glue my sentiments down there. I'm going to glue the couple down there, and I don't want things to reactivate. So if you've used charcoal or the Stabilo all pencil to shade here, and you just have to be more careful with future layers that you aren't going to reactivate and smudge up your work. So I've made that circle. So I have the globe, and I'm thinking, okay, this was kind of a test or an experiment to see. I'm building up a little bit more shading. I want this to stand out, and I want the globe part to also be brighter. So then I decide I'm going to very abstractly paint in the continents. And I'm using the floating acrylic technique there. I am not trying to make this picture perfect. I am not trying to be exact. I want to give the illusion that this is the earth. I'm adding a little bit of white there. I want this part to look darker than the background. Now, if you don't want to do the negative painting technique here, you could have just glued down that printable, and that would have been fine. I just wanted to mix my focal image between something that was brought out by negative painting and then something that was collaged down from a magazine. So there we have it, and I'm liking how everything is coming together. And now I'm going to add some more stenciling and stamping very selectively just to bring that out. Now, of course, I put that right there because, and then the couple's head is there. So that was a really bad place to put it. So I'm sorry that this is off screen right now, but we'll get back in soon. So I want some of those hearts to not be in your face, but I want them to show up a little bit more. And this makes some look like they're further back. Those are ones that I painted over, and these ones will look closer. So that's how you get that layering look. And I'm loving the contrast this is making. And again, I want the background to look different than the background that is now the earth. And by adding the stenciling to the rest of it, that's making it different and helps differentiate the earth from the background. So now I'm taking some gold paint and a cap. I had some water on my desk and made a mess, so I'm starting over and just rubbing the cap in there, and I'm just adding some circles. And most of the times those circles, I'm putting two of them together, and to me they look like golden wedding rings, like a 50th wedding anniversary that goes with the picture and the theme of the page. So you can add all sorts of symbolism into the background, into the foreground. This is a quick, easy way to make marks on here. It has texture. This background, oh my God, it has so much texture and interest. It's been a while since I've done a background with so many layers, but I had so much fun doing it, and I hope you guys give it a try. This is wet globby paint, so you're going to have to take time to make sure that this all dries. Now I want to bring out some of that texture. Remember the modeling paste we put down and all those layers of paper. So I am getting various colors that I've used and just getting it on the pad of my finger and rubbing ever so lightly on top. I'm brightening and lightening. I'm using a lot more white for the background because I want to brighten it up. I also want, I know my sentiment is going to have white in the back, and I just want that to work all together. And I'm just bringing out the texture. And you can go back and forth between the colors till you get it just right. What I do is I dip my finger into, right now this is white gesso, you could use white acrylic paint, and then tap it off. So it's almost like dry brushing and then rubbing it on the high points. And you can see how that's just lightening the background and it's adding further differentiation from what is the earth. Although I am adding a few white highlights here as well. This page took me about an hour 10, an hour 20 to finish. So just to give you an idea of how long it takes. And this, I knew what I was doing with it. I already had some things figured out. Sometimes you have to stop in the middle and figure it out. Lots of times I might do a background and then I start figuring out, okay, what do I want for a focal image? If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can follow me in Instagram at Creative Katie. You can see what I'm up to and get little reminders when new videos go up. Decided I wanted to brighten and lighten the background again, so I'm covering up the earth because I don't want that to be the same, and I'm giving a generous splatter of white paint. This is white paint that has been thinned with water, and I just pre-mix it in a container. I do a lot of splattering, so I have it all ready to go. It thickens over time, just add a little bit more water. Now I'm finishing up with my sentiment, and I was playing around with my sentiments, putting them on curves, and I really like that. So I'm hoping to start incorporating that into some new sentiment packs. And I cut the love is instead of putting it in one line because it basically breaks up my very abstract continents, which I like. I'm kind of hiding that I really didn't do such a great job. But you get the illusion of the continent and your brain will fit that in because your brain is expecting to see it. So here I'm using the fluid matte medium and I'm gluing down the sentiments and the uh, couple. And I don't have to worry here about anything reactivating. If you had used charcoal or stabilo or watercolor, you could not just do this. You'd have to be careful not to reactivate any of that because it'll smudge and discolor your sentiments and everything else, and you will not be happy. I'm using the floating acrylic technique to shade around the outside to frame the page. But I could have used my charcoal pencil here because there's no other steps. I know at the end, once that's done, I'm not putting any other layers on. I'm not going to end up reactivating it. If it was a canvas, I would definitely be doing the floating acrylic technique because I typically varnish my canvases, but I don't. Here I'm using the General's charcoal pencil, and I'm just shading around my focal image, bringing this out. I could have used the floating acrylic technique, but since it's the last layer, last step, I don't need to worry. I'm just going on, smudging this a little. Now, before you can successfully use the charcoal pencil, you need to make sure that everything that's down there is completely dry, or you'll rip paper or pull up paint. The best part of having photocopied the couple from the magazine picture is now I can use that same image again. I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, but it's such an adorable picture. So when I go through magazines, those are the kind of things I pull out. Pulling back the tape that gives a nice straight edge, and just loving, loving, loving everything about this background and how this all came together. So to recap, we started by collaging book papers, atlas papers, as well as some colored coffee filters. That gave a lot of texture, that started the color story, and gave some pattern that you can still see. I did some stamping with acrylic paint, and I did some stenciling as well. We came back and we added that later on as well, and I didn't mention that. Then I came and I put modeling paste through that snakeskin stencil, and that just gives such yummy texture to your background. I colorized then, again, using the blues and greens. It was an analogous color scheme right in here. Typically, they don't make mud, but when they did get a little bit discolored, I just wiped it back with a baby wipe. I used the negative painting technique to make the earth, the circle. I just like the idea of having one part of the focal image be the collage and one part be something else. And I made the circle with that was going to be the earth darker, and I painted the continents in there as well. I rubbed paint, white and dark, over the textured areas with the pad of my finger to bring out that texture. I collaged the magazine focal image. And remember, I had scaled it using the photocopier to fit my composition. I added the sentiment that I played around with word art, and I made it go with the curve of the earth. I splattered with white to tie in with the white on the sentiment. I shaded the focal image, the sentiments, and I edged the page. Here's some close-ups. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you give this a try. Now go get creative.